Oh, my audio engineering is difficult. How's it going, everybody? Happy Saturday. How you doing, Raging Pseudo?
Now that we've got the audio fixed and my green screen is like mostly working, doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're looking much better. These camera qualities have come a long way. Come a long way.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Did you hear the major echoey Pseudo as well, or is that just me?
My double E?
Pseudo, can you speak again?
Hello, hello. Are there multiple of me?
Yeah, you're totally echoey on stream, but not in OBS Ninja. Weird.
Oh boy.
Audio is hard, period. Even not Windows, Linux, all of it. It's all hard. It's never easy. Windows may make it harder, but it all sucks. It's audio. The fact that
live audio is actually
straight.
significantly easier.
Yeah,
way easier.
The fact that Rage sounds straight is confusing me because you guys are set up the same way.
Maybe you've got a channel that's supposed to be muted that isn't.
But you're going through the same channels.
Oh yeah, you'd just be capturing OBS Ninja.
Yeah.
Weird.
And it certainly sounds that way for me.
Maybe we just get extra Pseudo today?
Oh boy. It's like, I sound fine to you, Rich, just through OBS I'm getting doubled.
Yeah, you sound fine in OBS Ninja.
Try talking again, Pseudo. And that's muted all of you. Weird. Okay, well, we get stereo Pseudo for this stream because I don't care anymore. I just want to do the panel. So OBS Ninja, which is a fantastic little open source program that we use to do our audio and video for the multi-capture with the people down the side and everything, they put out a new update. And as soon as I logged in and saw that there was a new update, I went, oh no. Who is the better voice, Tony J or James Earl Jones? Let's go with it depends who they're voicing.
I just say yes.
That's a better answer than mine. But it as it turns out, when the people change things in their software and you don't notice until like 15 minutes before you're supposed to go live, that's bad.
I'm glad that we got most of it working. Most of it. But hey, we get to talk video games. And hey, Popo, nice to see you. Hey, Saxo, Board, Raven, all the other people. Jaggernaut, thank you very much for the resub. Love having you lurk around here. Before we dive into Ace Combat Zero, who's actually played Ace Combat Zero other than me?
I did a long time ago, in the PS2 era when I was growing up. I
have honestly never touched an Ace Combat game.
A lot more fun than I expected. That's what I have to say about them.
They're great.
I don't think too many in chat. Nobody's jumping up, and I didn't see Howling God, who's our resident Ace Combat super fan. He's probably playing Yakuza.
Probably.
It's a good game.
I look forward to playing it. You flew in the Air Force. The games don't appeal to you. Yeah, I can see that. Well, it's nothing like a sim either. It's like most of what the planes do. If you know planes, you're just like, planes can't do that.
Definitely arcadey. Very, very arcadey.
I mean, all you have to watch of Ace Combat to know how silly Ace Combat is the video of Ace Combat 7 where the guy flies backwards through a hallway. That was just for validation. All lies. I bet it's fun as hell. It is fun as hell. It really is. I don't normally like games like that. It's not my cup of tea. I never would have played the game in a million years had somebody not come in and said, you have to play this, and paid the points to make me play it. And I'm so glad he did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And my throat's already getting sore. That's bad.
based on what I've seen from Ace Combat Zero, which, it's a PS2 game. That game's old. They're really good. Really good games.
I couldn't believe how beautiful that game is for a PS2. Like, the whole time I was playing it, I was just like, they did this on a PS2? What?
Yeah, there's some amazing gems on that console.
It's some amazing trash.
Oh,
Never leave your wingman. How's it going, Val? Welcome. So let's just dive in and actually get started on it with writing. And we all paid attention during the game.
Yes.
What was that, Suda?
I was just saying, yeah. But for world building in this game, I actually find it kind of interesting what they've managed to kind of do with the series. I don't know what expectations I had when I went into this series, but I was not expecting them to actually put this much effort in. I'm hesitant to go in and say that it's this whole grand thing, but for some reason I was expecting like not a whole lot going on, but they've kind of you've got purpose, which is nice. There's a lot going on. Most of the time it's relevant to specific wars that are either happening or going through. I think Zero, that's the Balkan War, right?
Correct.
And it's like I've played quite a few games in a similar genre, and you're kind of just like, all right, you're in a fighter and you shoot down these things, and that's kind of it. And it's like full onto the arcade side, but it was kind of nice that they kind of you feel a bit of purpose of what's going on, and it's nice that they actually made characters and made personality, even though sometimes the writing's a bit odd and gets kind of cliche at times, and certain things that get said, I'm kind of like, okay.
I mean, that's kind of the charm, though.
Yeah,
I agree. There's nothing wrong
For
with
sure.
that. It's part of the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just like stuff I just didn't really expect, because like looking at the cover, you can't really tell the time, or like when first you can't tell like how serious this game's going to take itself. And it's like a nice blend of like, yeah, you're in a war death machine flying around killing things, but at the same time it's like, oh well, still an arcade game, still a video game, so we won't treat ourselves like we're some kind of simulator.
Yeah. I was honestly expecting like Sega Afterburner level of story, which is not. Here's a stage, shoot some stuff down. Here's a stage, shoot some stuff down. Here's a stage, shoot some stuff. That was what I was expecting coming into it. And the fact that they've actually created every civilization that's important on our Earth in a new name, new structure, minorly changed some details, but it gives so much context to what you're doing and a bit of feels. Like, I actually was somewhat attached to Pixie.
Yeah, and I think the way that they sort of stylized, shall we say, for lack of a better word, the actual world and put it into Ace Combat was quite good. I think they did a reasonable amount of changes to make it not feel just like, oh, it's just another military simulator, but give you enough flavor, enough interest to keep your attention.
Yeah. Do I think it's the greatest world building ever? No. I think it's okay world building.
Oh, yeah, it was solid. It wasn't amazing. It was solid.
Yeah, I mean, expecting no world building coming in, I was pleasantly surprised, but it's still not world building on the scale of Dark Souls or any JRPG.
Yeah, Bloodborne. Man, Bloodborne is a master class. In everything except frame pacing.
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier today because Pookie's playing some Dark Souls 3 and I've been watching Popo play some Bloodborne. If you haven't been to a Popo stream, check him out. He's doing Bloodborne for the first time, and anybody doing Bloodborne for the first time gets a shout out from me 100% of the time. That game is amazing. Watching him play it, every time I watch, I'm like, damn, I gotta play some more Bloodborne. Whereas when I see Pookie playing Dark Souls 3, it's like, I remember this part. And that's sort of the difference between them. Yes, I remember this, as opposed to, I need to play this again.
Okay, so tangent, but this is a big deal for me. So what they did with Dark Souls 3 is they made a Dark Souls game on the Bloodborne engine, and it fucking ruined it.
It didn't ruin it. It's still a good game.
It ruined it.
It's still a good game.
Like, it's still a good game. It's just nowhere near as good as an engine that was purpose built for a game like Dark Souls. Like, the way that mechanically combat works in Bloodborne is very, very different from how it works in Dark Souls. So you end up with this new, like, faster, like, focusing on speed combat style, which is really not what Dark Souls was about in the previous games, where you needed to be more thoughtful about what you're doing. You actually had to plan out what you were going to do. You couldn't just get in there and mash R1, which is like the whole thing of Bloodborne. You get in there and you mash R1 because you've got the rally system. Anyway.
That's what happens when somebody mentions Bloodborne. It becomes, let's talk about Bloodborne stream. Let's not do that again. Let's try to stay on topic.
But Bloodborne's so good, though.
Yeah, I know. We'll do a Bloodborne on full playthrough again sometime soon on stream, and then we can do a Bloodborne review and get it into the reviews, and we can talk about it for like 2 hours. It'll be wonderful. Characters.
Like good on everything except for performance.
I'm honestly leaning good on the characters, because the video sections between missions where they interview the characters gave me so much depth. Like, in a game where you're flying a plane and shooting down other planes, I know what all the characters looked like. I understand their personalities. I know why they were fighting the war.
I'm getting a little overlap here in my brain between Ace Combat 0 and Ace Combat 7, but I really appreciated the fact that they took you out of the planes and had you talk to these people. Like, it really does lend a lot more credence to the other planes that you see flying around. And they do have a sufficient amount of personality. It is definitely way more than I expected for a game like this, but it's high end of okay for me.
Pseudo?
Yeah, I was also surprised. Like, I wasn't really kind of expecting that, and it really does add quite a bit to the game. More than just, there's a lot of games that are in a similar vein of this, and you do have wingmen and teammates and even just like enemies you're fighting, but this kind of took that a bit to the next level of, really kind of allowing you to build or, feel like you have a connection, or feel like there's something more than just a plane flying around on your radar or on your screen with you. You're like, that is, someone you identify with and someone that, kind of pulls you in, and I think it really helps build that immersion. For when this game came out and how it is, I thought they did a pretty good job. So I'm like high end okay, leaning towards good. I could fall in either one of those and I'd be fine with it, but I'd say they did a really solid job on it.
We're kind of all in the same spot, low good to high okay.
I think Pseudo said something very important, which is that it added to the game.
Yes.
It did not take away from the game. It wasn't just there. I think that might push it up to a good by our rating system, because
that's kind of where I'm at.
It makes your experience more betterer.
Yes. To that extent, without giving spoilers, the final fight is amazing because of it all. So much better than it would be normally. Huge context add, huge flavor add, intensity. No, I think it should be good.
Yeah, I think
I've talked myself into it.
There's a lot of ways they could have gone with these characters too, like not just having characters. I mean, they could have had them a bit more cliche, or they could have had them more flat, or they could have ripped off Top Gun quite a bit. Kind of went down a lot of those areas, but it still felt a bit original too for the kind of world they were setting and everything they wanted to go through. So that's what kind of surprised me the most. I'm like, wow, and like. We'll get more into, I guess, just the writing and the performances that are given for them. It's just like, this is like, it adds a lot to it rather than, because you go into it just wanting to fly jets and shoot stuff, and like, that's awesome. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've got purpose for everything that I'm doing.
I'm not just mindlessly shooting it down.
And then the resolution matters rather than just shooting something down and being like, yeah, got him.
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy with the good. It could definitely be a high okay as well. It's a fairly low good, but it adds enough to the game that the game would be a worse game without them. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's very important to take in the context of, the game and the genre itself too. Especially for like expectations, and it's just they did.
Though we've never said, well, it's good for this genre, so we'll give it a good. These are actually genuinely good characters that are adding to the game.
Yeah, it's just like, honestly, it's just like when you play like action games like this, it's just nice to see that, and it's nice to bring it up when like if you're playing like a adventure game or like a narrative driven game, like the focus is so much more on the characters kind of thing, where a lot of these games, the developers effort and timing and the design of the game go into specific categories usually, and for a lot of these games there isn't always a lot of attention to characters, so it's kind of nice to have that, and it really kind of shows through, and we actually played an action game that has good characters. Like, why do I feel this way about what's going on? I'm so used to just being like, action, shoot thing, yeah, okay, it's over, next game with action, shoot things, it's nice.
I agree. Storyline. And I don't remember much of the storyline. It didn't ruin the game in any way. It was a nice add. I think it would have been the same game without any story and just mission after mission after mission, but it was some nice context between missions.
Yeah, definitely didn't take away from the experience.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where they lean more on the character writing than anything else. The storyline is nice, but the character writing is really what brings you through the game and keeps you engaged. I honestly don't remember most of it. I remember more of Ace Combat 7.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those experiences where you remember the middle and the end quite a bit, but the like in between of those points, you remember most of just the characters themselves and what was actually going on.
Hopefully that sums it up well. Story is there, it is acceptable, it keeps things moving forward and will engage large fans of the series who play the game more so than playing this as a standalone. Because it is a continuously evolving world and story, and if you were a fan of all the other Ace Combats, this advances and builds the story as you move forward, and there's definitely something there for big fans of the series. But I didn't get a lot of that because I had no idea what was happening going in. You did not. That'll be 2 weeks from now. I'm
excited for that.
And MGRR. Oh, I love that game.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard not to be biased.
2 weeks from now is Yakuza 0 and Metal Gear Rising Revengeance reviews, so that'll be fun.
That'll be a good review day.
I'm not even going to ask you guys. I'm just going to put a good.
I mean, PS2. It ran incredible for on a PS2.
Yeah. And all I'm going to say in the wording is, how the hell did they do this on a PS2? There's a dozen planes on the screen at the same time. It never drops frames. It never slows down. The ground looks good from a distance, which is normally how far you should be from it.
Sometimes Deus wasn't, but...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hit things. Mountains, lakes, grounds, other planes. Animations, yeah. Because there's not really a lot of animation, is there?
So here's the thing on this one, though. You played from the viewpoint with the least animations.
Because I couldn't play it in any others. I couldn't do it. I tried, and I was just like, they took away my UI. What do I do? 420.
But I remember Howling God being like, "No, come on, you gotta play from the behind the plane view. You got to do this." And I think you tried to play from the behind the plane view for like 2 minutes. And I don't remember if there's like articulated parts on the PS2 one, but there definitely was in 7. and 7 looked really good.
Yeah, there are still the articulated parts and everything in 0, but it doesn't have all of the wind shear effects and stuff like that going on that 7 had, because Unreal Engine on PS4 is able to do a lot more than the PS2 on custom AC engine.
So I would say, like, for a game in which there isn't very much animation, just because there's not really anything to animate,
I think it's okay.
the ones that were there were solid.
Yeah. Missiles looked like missiles. Like, nothing really has a ton of animation to it, but everything that was moving looked proper. Nothing looked bad. Nothing looked out of place. Nothing pulled me away from the game. Nothing made me think I'm playing a game other than the fact that I'm playing a game. Otherwise, it was all fitting.
Yeah, there's you can also talk about some of the animations they use in the UI, because those are pretty solid too. I thought that's something that Ace Combat usually has pretty nice stuff. All alerts.
What do you mean?
Like the alerts that pop up and stuff like that. Am I thinking of something else here?
No, I'm just thinking back, and I don't remember any of them being animated, but that doesn't mean they weren't.
It's not like a full animation. It's just like the actual kind of design. It's still like very. It's not like a full model animation or any kind of stuff. It's just from what there is. I liked just any kind of text animation they have as well, and anything in the UI that they animated.
I got an animation for your Rage that you loved. I just remembered one. The post-mission recap.
Oh yeah, those are sick. I love those.
So where do we fall? Okay? We okay on animations?
Definitely at least okay. And I don't think that there's a ton more that they could have added without just like animating things for animating things' sake.
Let me know if that sounds good.
I'm thinking now, and even Project Wingman, like, sure, the fidelity is higher, but there's not really any more animations.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, the missiles and stuff all move and arc and perform in the same ways, and everything moves well. Nothing's rigid or jarring. Everything's organic. Everything looks right.
Is it a good then?
Is there enough of it to call it good?
That's my question. Like, do we feel like it adds to the game, or would it be fine without it?
I mean, it basically is without it, but I think it's fine the way it is. What they have is good enough. I don't think you could improve it anymore, though, really. You are right on that.
Yeah, that's the dilemma I'm feeling right now, is just like, if we get something okay, it's usually because there's, something they could have done to make it a good, but there's not much that could have been done. But it's also hard for us to think about, what could have been added that wasn't. I can't remember the term for it, but there might have been stuff that could have been in there that could have animations that we're just not aware of that some other game might have done. I guess it also kind of, like I said, it feels like it's an okay, but it's also hard for me to say that without properly being able to point something else to why it's an okay. So it doesn't feel great.
I don't think we need to be.
Have you played any games with amazing plane animations?
I don't think it needs to be some way that we could see it being better for us to say it was okay. With our general scaling of complement, like improves the game and adds to the game, is there in the game and just subtracts from the game, it's just kind of there in the game. It's not improving in the game in any way.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, if we review like a text adventure game or something, I mean, there's only so much we could say for that as well.
Yeah, I'd probably give a text adventure game okay to bad in animation.
Yeah.
And, the whole point of these separate categories is everybody likes different things about the game. So if you're coming to this game and going, I really like great animations, and you play it, you might be a little let down. It's just okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm okay with an okay. Like, I no idea what they could have done to improve, but...
But on the style, I think we can give it a good.
Yes. Yes, everything was stylized very well.
I mean, a fighter jet jam-packed with 40-plus missiles isn't a realistic sim. Isn't?
I mean, it depends on the size of the missile, right? You can have missile pods with tons of missiles in them, and they store them in the wings. Like,
yeah, this is...
But again, it's not visible. You can't see it. They can't animate that.
Yeah. But I think he was more commenting on Howling Gods. I think that's going into the territory of the realistic simulations.
Oh, yeah probably.
I
But everything's about me, damn it.
I want to take a jet model and slap 40 missiles onto it now just to see what it would look like. Just for the meme.
Well, you should try to do what I have in Project Wingman, which is 116 standard missiles and then like 40 multi-target missiles.
My jet has a missile factory built into it, so it'll build missiles as we fly. That's where they come from.
That's how a lot of sci-fi and stuff carrier. Explains it, is like replicating missiles or manufacturing missiles, so you just have energy and or raw material on board.
Shoot a plane and then go and vacuum up its scrap metal to turn into more missiles.
I mean, we've got a pretty
super
good
sick though.
I was just saying we've got a pretty good roguelite idea going on already, I think, here. That'd be a great way to do it. Everything look like it fit, everything move, or see, typing while talking.
We could make a roguelite that is like FTL, except dogfights.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of some weird like surge mechanic where you can just like shoot off the other jet's components and take them.
Oh,
like, you want his wings? Shoot him off and take his wings.
Have you ever played Front Mission? Any of the Front Mission games?
Everyone just has a big old magnet.
No.
That's exactly what you do in Front Mission. It's a mech RTS game where you have a fleet of mechs, and when you attack the enemy, you choose which part you attack, and if you can make them surrender before you completely destroy them, then you can keep the parts that are left. So like if you really want the body and you destroy the legs and then shoot off the weapons and just surround him, he'll just be like, okay, I give up, and then you can keep the rest of his mech. It was a great
like
game.
That, but planes.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Everything looked like it fit. The style was consistent and enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a really good looking game, especially for on PS2.
Yeah. Musical score.
Flamenco. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's good. Music was
definitely
adds a lot to the game.
That was another part of this game that really surprised me. I wasn't expecting, because
I wasn't expecting specifically flamenco, but I'm super happy that it was there.
Yeah, like I think Top Gun has just kind of ruined a lot of expectations for this kind of genre of stuff for me. So I'm always just waiting for
80s action. To play. Yeah, 80s rock everywhere.
80s rock and hair metal and just like camp, but it really adds, and the tone it sets kind of too. It kind of, I don't know, like especially like the background music that plays during certain dialogues and stuff too. I'm like, wouldn't expect this, but it's surprisingly fitting.
Also, specifically the flamenco track in like that final encounter, so good.
Yeah, it added so much to the game. Armies playing an AC-6 and PW have missile pods on top on the surface of the plane. It opens up and fires 20 plus at once. PW is Project Wingman. I want this plane. Why don't I have this plane? Project Wingman's great, by the way. But we'll talk about that later. Pretty. You'll have to grind for it. Oh. Okay. What do I have to do? I'll have it ready for next stream.
I can do that.
The voice acting was good. Yeah, it was like watching a movie.
Yeah, they gave really convincing performances. One other thing I wasn't expecting was the writing of the characters combined with how they actually delivered their lines and their roles. It just kind of surprised me. I don't know if I liked it more because my expectations weren't there for it and it just surprised me, but I think on its own, like the quality of it was just really well done.
Yeah. I think that sums it up. The voice acting was like watching a movie. The voices in the game while flying were informative and added character depth, all well read.
Did they add a voice effect on top of it? I don't remember.
They did. It was definitely it sounded like radio when you were in plane.
Yeah.
And they didn't
I'm
ruin
thinking
it.
back, and all I can remember is like the cutscenes in between mission bits, and it's all like ultra clear there. But the addition of having this sounds like it's coming over a radio effect is really good.
And pulling off, it sounds like it's coming over a radio without just completely ruining the audio with PS2 era audio engineering, not an easy thing to do. You hear it in a lot of games where they tried to do it and you're just like, oh my god, my ears. And the sound effects were good.
Did very good job on both the voice and the sound effects.
There was an air sound too, wasn't there?
Was there a whoosh noise?
Like just like a flying through the air, like hearing it go over the cockpit so that there's constantly some sound.
Yeah, and the engine whine. Yeah, they did a good job. I didn't think about it while you were playing, but like it was just like, yep, that's plane noises.
Yeah. But then when you stop to think about it, they're like, those were plane noises. Yeah. AI is an interesting one with this game because
it's basically all the game is.
Yeah, it basically just relies on AI. I didn't do the harder difficulties, but I have seen some gameplay of the harder difficulties. And you don't take more missiles to kill them. You might take a little more damage, but they take the same damage. They weren't having to put in a whole lot of extra work to kill things still. The extra work was in positioning and maneuvering properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this one's kind of interesting because I haven't been able to fully close in on how much of it's like a predetermined pathing, how much of it's kind of just like how much influence an AI actually has over the control of the jets. It might have quite a bit, it might not. It's just I that's what I assume for a lot of times, especially like older games. A lot of the times when you do these kind of like fighting games or jet games or even like racing games, a lot of the times there's not like an actual driver. It's usually like you have a bunch of predetermined paths that they'll take, and it feels like it's going around, and it's if it's well done, you don't really notice it. So I couldn't really pin down if that was the case or not, because they really kind of respond decently to your movements. But at times it does kind of feel like you can feel the AI when it's there, and its actions are repeated quite often. You can kind of get into a sense of, okay, if I do this, he'll do this, and I can set up a thing like that. It's definitely not bad in any sense. It definitely, it helped a lot for the game, but I don't know how much of it was there versus just like determined pathing, especially since it's PS2.
I would argue if their use of determined pathing is so good that you can't even tell if they're doing it or an AI, that's good.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to the immersion of like how often could you tell that it was a AI thing you were tracking down versus how often it felt like there was an actual jet trying to shoot you down.
We should actually call this like enemy behavior almost. Because if you're not using AI to control the other faction, the computer controlled bits, but you're using some other form that controls them, and it does it well in an enjoyable manner in the game, that should be factored in.
I think AI is still a encapsulating term.
Okay.
It is an artificial intelligence. It's not intelligence, and like even games like Pong, there's not like a full like behavior set, but it still can feel like you're playing someone else that's real.
Yeah.
It's just what happens sometimes in games where they have behavior paths that aren't so much like behavior trees, is that there's only so many, and if you're paying attention, you can find them and notice them, and then once they start repeating, like humans are just naturally pretty good at finding patterns, so you can find patterns in behavior, and all of a sudden it's no longer an AI, or like, okay, well, I can make the machine do this.
Yeah.
Same thing could just be said for people who are doing this or controlling things too. So it's just a really complicated topic, but I'd say they did a solid job. Like, it's challenging too, which is nice. It's still fun.
I can say from a single playthrough and an experience with it, there was never a point in the game where I was intuiting a pattern. I was constantly responding to stimulus feedback. Everything was responsive. Never like I'm going to guide them into this, other than a few times where, like, later on you start to understand how planes fly. And there's certain points where like they can only turn so much. So you just start learning those points and you fire at them then.
Yeah. And then another thing to that too is with AI is the balance of it too. Especially in some games, you'll find that, with the ability of AI, you can make it, too strong or too good, because it doesn't have to fail. It can succeed on hits 100% of the time. So it's also a balance that needs to be there to kind of pull that metric between, a good AI and a bad AI. Like, you can make Pong with a perfect AI that'll, you'll never get called by it. And it's like, sure, the AI is good, but, for the game itself, it'll make the game terrible because it'll never be fun. You'll always just get kind of wrecked.
Yep. I'm with you. That's why I was pointing out at the beginning that it's not additional damage to kill the enemies. You're flying. You need to fly better to hit them on harder difficulties. And to scale difficulties without scaling health becomes an AI problem. Becomes a unit control problem, a response problem. And I think they nailed it. I really do.
Yeah, I wonder how much of there is in like flying assist too. I wonder if that has anything to do with difficulty, if it, like, the actual controlling of your jet becomes any easier on easier difficulties, or becomes harder on harder difficulties.
Interesting.
That is something that I have seen on other flight games and in racing games as well. It's very, very common.
Yeah, super common in the driving.
Just on easier difficulties, they hold your hand a little. They make it easier for you to do the thing. So it would not surprise me at all to see it in something like Ace Combat.
Yeah, and I'm going to argue that that's probably a good thing too. Yeah, if they do it seamlessly, it just increases your enjoyment of the game no matter what your skill level is. Because flying controlling a plane in the air is one of those like extreme ceiling skills. Like, the difference between the people who are good and the people who aren't is a drastic difference. Unfortunately,
much like StarCraft.
Yeah, unfortunately, that really hurts its multiplayer. Because if you're not good, you're just gonna get eaten. Like, you won't have fun. How to sum that up?
Enemy controls are fluid and responsive. You feel like you're fighting enemy planes, not AI.
You can only do that mission properly with the PlayStation Eye thingy, right? So that it can watch your face and make sure you have one of your eyes closed. Difficulty scaling is more about the skill of the enemy and does not become spongy. It was very
I'd say that sums it up.
little pre-predictability to the pathing. I'm not going to say none because I'm sure you could figure out some, and I think there was one repeatable pattern I did use on the final fight. But otherwise, that thing was so hard to catch. Accessibility. It has controller inversion.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It starts inverted, I think, because it's a plane game. And that's just how planes fly, with a stick. But I'm pretty sure you can uninvert.
I think. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, if you can uninvert it, I think an important thing for this is like how much visual notification there are for things, as well as the audio indication for things for like.
You get audio sliders, not sliders, but I think you have individual audio levels.
Yeah, I was thinking from like the actual game play. I'm trying to remember how much, if it relied on like either one of those and not a combination of both. I think it was always both. I think there was always a visual notification along with an audio notification.
Oh, yes, depending on the view you're flying from. Third-person view had less notifications, less heads-up display on it. And I used my altimeter marks on my HUD a lot. And when I went to third-person, it took that away, and that's how I was like, no, I can't fly like that.
So I'm actually reading the instruction manual that comes with it to see if there's a.
Because I don't think there's much other than volume option in the options and inversion. But it's PS2. If you have volume options, that's probably a lot of options for a PS2 game.
Here we go. You can select normal or novice controls.
Yeah, I remember that. And normal control is definitely the way you want to go.
Yeah, and you can invert both camera and control sticks.
Yep.
Sound settings, separate volume sliders.
Yep, remember that part.
You can adjust your aspect ratio, brightness, position.
Yeah, the standard, make sure it fits your TV stuff.
That's about it. So
yeah, that's what I expected.
Based on it being a PS2 game, okay.
The game has inversion and independent audio sliders. Oh, it also had subtitles, right?
I think so. Doesn't say anything about it in the options menu page.
I remember having subtitles on my game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Is that up on YouTube? Let's check. YouTube Games by Design. Project Wingman.
Yeah, I got the first video of that up there. I want to play Project Wingman in VR.
Do it. You only need one camera. You
guess that's true. Desk. That's a lot of work, though, still.
Yes, there are subtitles.
Yeah. Squadrons in VR, and it was super sick.
Oh, yeah, right on. Yeah, I want to get my VR set up again.
I've been tempted to pick up Squadrons, but I know it's one of those games that I'll play for like an hour and be like, that was fun, and then never play it again.
Mechanics. We got an okay for accessibility. Well, that's normally a bad. I think what we have there is a bad. We've given those exact ratings bad so many times. There's nothing for... Actually, no, I think we gave it okay before. What's it missing? It's missing color.
That's okay.
It's missing colorblind options.
I misheard you for a second. I thought you were saying you're giving the mechanics bad, and I was like, what? What's going on?
Yeah, no, we're not giving it a bad. Don't worry.
It would be bad if it didn't have inversion.
I agree.
But it does.
Yeah. Most playing games do have inversion, but yeah. I'm at a good myself with mechanics. I loved everything about the game.
It is definitely the crux of the game is, you're going to be flying jets, and the mechanics that go with that need to be very, very important.
Yeah, controlling the plane felt wonderful. Intuitive, responsive. Like, I didn't stumble with the game for long, and I haven't played a game like this basically ever. I just kind of picked it up and went, oh, I'm flying a plane. Look, I'm shooting things down. I was worried about adoption of the style.
Yeah. Mechanically, I don't think that there's much that I would change. Like maybe some control rebinding would be nice, but we'll be talking that under
That's under control. Mechanics is more like, they've got special ground bombs, they've got targeted ground attacks, they've got multi-target air attacks.
Oh, timers.
Oh, yeah. The timer is kind of a red mark, isn't it? That ruined the fun of the game more than a few times for me. Everything else is so fun. I love it.
Yeah. So, okay, because the game doesn't let you play it for long enough.
Yeah.
Like even in games like this, I'm okay with like a hidden timer. Like I'm fine, but just having it be have it be like a fuel gauge, or have it be like a reinforcements are showing up now, or have like if you build it into the mechanic, then at least it doesn't feel like you just watch the number go 0 without any explanation.
Yeah.
Like it could still be like the number going down, but if it's communicated saying like we need to, for this mission, we need to go in and do this, or this bomb's going to go off, or we're going to run out of fuel, this is our fuel time. And even if you can add some way to like increase the time, that adds so much more to the experience. And it's just one of those things where like when you play a game like this, or you're doing like time trials, they usually need to be shorter, because if it's like a longer mission, you get to like the 5-minute mark, you'll hit like 3 minutes and you'll know how far you've gone. Like, okay, well, this attempt, I'm not as far as I want. And then all of a sudden, there's no point in playing the game anymore. Or this run, you need to restart it. And that there kind of just sucks. And I don't like it. It's not a good feeling. It's not fun.
Yeah. I love the fuel idea. I was thinking that the whole time too, because they actually let you refuel in some missions. Why not reset my time?
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, that was the one mission I failed time on a whole bunch, because it's fly around this map of all this stuff and blow things up for points. And some things are worth more points than others. So you just kind of got to blow things up and figure out what's worth points and where the things worth points are. When I beat it, it was flying right to the points where flying right to the spots where I knew the high point targets were. That's how I beat it.
Which is just not fun.
No. Game is fantastic, other than its tendency to not let you play it. The time limits caused rushing and memorization rather than enjoying the game mechanics, which were fantastic. I gave it 2 fantastics, but I still give it an okay, because time limits. There's
bugs. Did we run into any?
No.
And like Howling God didn't have any to warn us of ahead of time.
I always include during a normal playthrough because of that QA talk we did.
Oh yeah, you can always intentionally break things. That's not a problem.
There's only one graphical bug, and that's with the final boss, and it only happens on emulation, so it doesn't count. Yeah, that's not a bug in the game, that's an emulation error, because they're not emulating the PS2 100%.
RNG, as far as I could tell, there basically wasn't any.
Yeah, I was giving it a good because it never interfered with the game, as it shouldn't in this game. RNG was used properly in it, in my opinion, which is there isn't really any.
At least not that you can tell, which is...
Yeah.
God,
Here's weather.
Lord.
Yep. I was just checking for bugs. Seeing if I can go through the
Had
world.
to get real close down there to see the bugs too. They're very small.
Yeah, bugs are pretty tiny. There is no visibly apparent RNG, which adds to the game experience. Control was good.
Rebinding controls would have been very nice.
That's more of an
Although I think
accessibility
that's
thing.
more of a, I was going to say more of accessibility than anything else.
Yeah. Control was fluid, responsive, and intuitive. Every failure felt like a failure of my skill and not the game. Number one thing I hate is dying because the game can't do what I told it to do. Now, dying because it did what I told it to do and that was the wrong thing to do, that's okay. That's a very,
Totally
very
acceptable.
good review. That's a very, very green review.
Yeah. Okay writing, everything else good.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I suppose the fact that it is a dogfighting game, like, does make it easier. But
Well, you still have
also-
to be aware of what makes a dogfighting game good. The control and the AI is essential to the game. And if you don't get those just right, it's not going to be a very good game.
oh, for sure. But like everything else on the list is significantly easier because it's a dogfighting game.
Audio?
Oh yeah, you don't have to do nearly as much audio. And
Yeah.
because you only have to do like a third as many audio recordings, then you can spend more time on them and make them better.
Fair enough. There is less number. But reaching the quality plateau, I guess if you have that much more time, hopefully your guys can do it. But yeah. That's just scope, right?
Yep.
So they scoped the project well for their funding and got some fantastic quality on their work.
Big agree.
Tiny. Big. I can even make it bigger, can I? Yes, I can. All right, Bioshock 2. One that you've actually played. Right?
Yeah,
I
I
have.
played a bit of Bioshock too.
Excellent. I enjoyed it. As a whole,
Yes.
playing it.
It's the Dark Souls 2 of the Bioshock games.
Yeah. Boards played it. You get to take part. Yay! All right. World building? World building. Now, does the game do world building, or is it just in a world that's already built?
I would say it does add to the world that was built in Bioshock 1. I wouldn't say enough for like, wow, it did such a good job, give it a good. But it does add to it a bit.
It gives you a bit more context on the big daddies. Go ahead, Pseudo.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's definitely like the Bioshock 1 world experience and the Bioshock 2 world experience. And even though they can still have that very similar setting and be in the kind of same place, the actual context that you're in can still be quite a bit different. And the second one definitely does build off a bunch of the stuff that did with the first one, but I still think that as a world building experience on its own, it does stand fairly well. Like everything through the Big Daddy, I thought was really neat. I don't know if it's enough to really push it over to like a good, but it's definitely, you know, a solid effort they put in, and I'd say it's still, you know, well done.
Yeah, I'm with you on the okay. I think we're all of the same mind there. Definitely not good. Like it's not like changing anything, but it did add without ruining, and just added enough to create context and depth and understanding of the world, which is what you want. You don't want more than that unless they're going to do it really, really well, at which point just make a new IP. Do I even remember any of the characters from the second one?
I sure as shit don't.
But there was no offensively bad characters.
No, I would say it's another instance of, I remember the daughter. I don't remember the daughter's name, but I remember the daughter.
I just remember that there is a daughter because there's always a daughter.
But other than that, like, they're pretty forgettable. You don't remember a lot about them, like you would the characters in Bioshock 1. Like, just learning about Atlas in Bioshock 1, like, whoa.
Yeah. And I felt like there's quite a bit they could have done with the Big Daddy or Big Daddies as well, to kind of use them as characters.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it felt like that could have been something that could have been, you know, explored a bit more or built on, and, you know, instead of just having them I still like the mystery around them and just having the Big Daddies, but I feel like with the writing that they do have in some of the games, I feel like that could have been a really interesting path to go down.
Yeah, there's a lot more they could have done with it, which is kind of a shame. But what they did end up doing is fine. Didn't hurt the game. It's just it is very much a case of a game much like Dark Souls 2, where the first one is just so goddamn good that it's really hard to measure up.
Yeah. Not only is it hard to measure up, you know, you've got a lot more money riding on the IP now. It's much more invested in by the company, and all of a sudden, often, at least at that time, games became safe. You don't want to do anything too drastic to it. And the storyline was basically the same as the first game.
Mostly. It did have enough different to it that I wouldn't just say it ripped off the first game.
I understand why the things that are the same, without spoiling the global Bioshock story. But nothing about it, again, stands out to me a whole lot. I think it kind of suffers from the Fallout and Elder Scrolls Compass issue.
Yeah. So did the first one, honestly.
Yeah.
But the first one does a better job of drawing you in because it's fresh and it's telling the story of a world that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Whereas this one, like I said, it's just in that world and gives you a bit more context on the world, and that's it.
I definitely wouldn't call it a bad.
No, it's
but
not
I also
bad.
I can't call it a good.
The story is a good means of delivery from area to area. Is a decent add to the Bioshock universe.
Maybe put in a note about it following a lot of the same notes as the first game's story.
tends to follow a very similar arc as the first game. DLC story is better, but I don't think you played it. I did not. Nothing about the game itself made me go, I want to play the DLC! That's just wasn't there. Didn't do it.
Thinking back to original launch.
Yeah, I played it on a
remaster.
monster system. And I played the original version, not the remaster.
Oh, did you play the original?
Yep. The remaster has some bad bugs.
Thinking back to launch. I recall it being fairly solid, but like 60 FPS was like your high-end bar, and it was butting up against it on most systems.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just trying to remember like the reception of its performance at launch.
Gotcha.
And I think it was fairly positive.
Okay. I'm good with giving it a good, because we're doing the review right now. And if you read it right now and you have a potato, you can probably run it just fine.
Ran on an Xbox 360, you'll be fine.
Yeah. So the fact that they pulled it off on an Xbox 360 probably deserves a good, because it's a pretty good looking game for a 360.
30 FPS.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the norm on those kind of consoles, though, right?
Yeah, 30 FPS. I think it was paced pretty well. I don't think it had too many dips.
Play this on a potato. It was originally made for a 360.
It's still good that it, like, even older games sometimes don't play well on newer machines if they didn't.
That's fair.
Limit stuff properly,
Yeah.
especially in games that don't have proper like frame locking. They're like, oh yeah, this thing will play on this hardware around here, but you play it at a higher FPS, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I run faster and go faster and do more damage, and what is happening to everything? Or yeah, even some of my favorite games, I'll go back to play them. I'm like, you do not age well with my hardware.
Yeah, I tried to play one of my old favorite DOS games, and they tied everything to the frame, and it was great running it on an old like 486. But then when I booted it up on like, a more modern CPU that actually has some horsepower, all that would happen is combat would start, and you'd see yourself standing there, and you'd like push forward to start running forward to start combat, and you just like whomp and run into the wall of their castle instantly, and then combat's over.
Yep.
Just bring enough troops to win.
I pulled up a TechSpot article on Bioshock 2 from 2010 when it launched.
Oh, interesting.
And the GeForce 9800 GT would run it at a minimum of 32 FPS at high quality at 1920 by 1200. The more the newer cards of the time, e.g. the GTX 200 series and the Radeon HD 5000 series, were minimuming 60 FPS.
That's
so
solid.
My memory was not correct. It ran really fucking well.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds solid. I remember when they first released Bayonetta on PC, they bumped everything up to 60 FPS, but forgot to tweak the timing on the button mashy QTEs, so it was literally impossible to complete a lot of them until they patched it. RIP.
That's pretty great.
Animations, I liked. I thought they were good. I liked the death animations, the hit animations, the attack animations, the drill animation for stabbing things.
A lot of it was taken directly from Bioshock 1, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked all the ads though. All the your experimental Big Daddy weapons and the grindy claw and everything, they were pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Definitely added to the game. movement of the new enemies was unique and fitting. I got to add that too. Because there are some new enemy types, so they had to animate those. They definitely move different than anything else in the game, but they still look like them while they're moving.
Yeah. Not a lot to say about animation, I think.
Yeah, this I really enjoyed it, but it also felt like something that could have been like a DLC. I know there's a lot to the game, and it's quite a bit, but like it didn't feel like it branched off enough from the first one to feel like its own standalone thing. It felt more of like a smaller extension of it because it kind of used a lot of the same stuff. I found I liked going through the Big Daddy thing, but it didn't feel like I was like
playing a new game. Yeah,
playing a new game. It was like I felt like I'm playing Bioshock 1, but now I'm playing as a Big Daddy.
Yeah, Bioshock 1 Big Daddy mode.
Yeah,
it's basically what it was. The
Except
style,
that you were super squishy.
Yeah.
yeah. I was disappointed. I remember that. Like those things were scary as hell, and then all of a sudden I'm one. I'm like, wait, why am I dying to this? I'm so this is what I was so scared of.
Style. Well, no, we're not, but we'll get to that. Is it still a good?
They didn't change much, but it felt more well, they did have the underwater sequences. I was gonna say it felt more restricted. It felt like it had less variety to it. But they had like the underwater sequences and
Yeah.
the going back into past rapture sequences near the end.
There was less outlandishness to it than the first one. Is more what you're looking at, I think. Like all the neon lights and strange things like that. The dancing and yeah.
Yeah. I'd say okay. Like the new stuff that they added was cool, but they also made like Rapture itself a little less interesting.
Everything is a lot more samey at that point. That's wonderful, Pseudo. Did you just make that?
Yeah. ADD, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. He managed to get all of those rockets we were talking about on a plane. That's what it looks like.
I was going to have it ready for the end of the AC thing, but I'm like, yeah, I was curious. Like, what would it look like? There we go.
There we go. That's all the missiles that you could fit on the plane.
I love technology. The fact that that's something that you can just throw together in less than 10 minutes is just mind-blowing to me nowadays.
Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah, I'm good with an okay. There is a literal rocket ship. Yep. There is nothing wrong with the style. It is a little more samey and less outlandish than the original game. It is fine. It does not take away from the game.
Unless you just finished playing the first one, in which case you're kind of like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the expectations after the first one, it's like you expect things to keep going and that kind of arc up, and it just kind of flatlines in the experience, and you're kind of, it's not bad, it's just, you're hoping that it would just expand and add so much more and, find new things to present or new things to go down rather than, like, that's the unfortunate thing. It kind of just felt like a bit of a DLC. Like it still felt encapsulated by the first game, so it's hard to really, say they did anything different without, we can't say it's a bad style because, the first game had a great style, but I can't say it's great because, it's not really the style of this game. It's the style of Bioshock 1. It's not a Bioshock 2 style.
But done, like, slightly worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Infinite's a strange one because it was personally my favorite, and I've talked to other people who say it's the worst one. So
I definitely wouldn't say it's the worst one, but it's just very different than Bioshock 1.
Yep. I've talked to people who have different extreme opinions on it, and that's usually
sign of a good game.
Yeah, the sign of a good game. That's usually what it is. Musical score.
Score.
I'm leaning okay because I remember nothing about it.
They still did a lot of the like 50s Art Deco-y sort of musics.
There's never like
Fine.
there isn't a single scene where I remember music being like amazing. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
You know, you're in that place. The music's there. It fits, and it's just kind of what you expect to hear.
I'd say like the soundtrack itself does that complement the experience. But I think a game to kind of compare to, and I know it comes out later, but it's one of those games where the music does stand out in certain scenes. Was We Happy Few.
Yes.
And that's the kind of
Yes,
thing
that was very
where
well done.
that's when you have like, you know, same kind of theming, and then you get the music to accompany that, and you sit there like, ooh, where this is like, it's themed and it matches and it complements it, but you know, it doesn't push it to that next level of like, wow, this is fantastic. It doesn't subtract from it either, because you know, if they had, you know, a bunch of just off-themed music that starts playing, we love to bring up, you know, Space Country. They don't do any of that. At
so
least.
bad.
I want to point out that it's not just that we hate country music. It's like there was people in the chat that like country music going, why is there country playing here? Like it's just,
Yeah.
why would you put this here? It makes no sense.
It's definitely the consistency and like the theming, right? There's a lot of other games that have, you know, lesser extreme examples where, you know, battle music will play at inappropriate times, or you know, the battle music maybe isn't as intense as it should be and can like really draw back from your experience. Like most fighting games, you know, it'll really stand out if you don't have like encounter music. If you still just have like chill walking around music while fighting something, it really does kind of jar your experience, because you don't know how you should be feeling. Because when you first start playing these games, they condition you with this audio. It's part of the kind of behavior programming. It's like when you hear this, you know, you should be chill and relax. And when you hear, you know, upbeat stuff, it's like, yeah, it's go time. But if you're hearing chill stuff while it's go time, you like, it really kind of it messes with you a bit. It doesn't feel right. You can't always put your finger on it, but you'll feel like something is off.
Which is very much the case in Bioshock 2, where it's just kind of like, it's not meh.
Yeah.
Meh.
It was never bad. There's never a point where I wanted to change it or turn it off. The voice acting...
It's no Risk of Rain 2, though.
Yeah, no. The voice acting was good, I think. Things sounded good. Voiced well. Believable. Tone and inflection in the voice.
Yeah.
The game
it's no Booker and Elizabeth, but it was a good delivery of what they had.
Yeah, it may be held back by the writing, but we're giving the voice acting the mark, not the writing at this point. The writing already got the okay all the way through, and the whole game is just so okay. It's easy to lean that way, but I do think the voice acting was genuinely well done compared to other stuff that I've heard as okay.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of those things where, like, you know, good writing allows for, you know, great performances, and there's only so much you can do with kind of mediocre or sometimes flat writing. But I think from what was there, the actual performances they gave were quite good.
If anything, the voices to the characters was really one of the only things to set them apart.
And that was achieved well.
Yep.
It's the actual performances as well as the actual casting. I think they casted the characters great.
Yep.
That's something I'll find with some games, especially games that kind of have a lot of characters in them, and there's nothing wrong with having voice actors perform multiple actors. It's a very common thing, but you'll find sometimes when they're not given proper personality direction, you'll play a game that has, you know, the same character show up voiced the same way with like a slight change, but you can tell that it's still just, you know, very similar to another character you met, and you're like, are you related or something? Or like they didn't have the writing or the personality for the performance, and like depending on who's casted for what, sometimes it can be jarring. It can really stand out. There's notable RPG games that come out well, I'm not going to stop naming names because I keep feeling bad for calling them out almost every review. But there's certain types of games that when they don't have that performance with it, and then they play multiple characters, you really notice it when you have a properly done cast and proper personality and performance for each distinct character, rather than going into a town and like half the characters kind of just feel in the general sameness of them.
The sound effects, I think, were good too.
I wonder.
The drill, yeah.
Little tangent. I wonder if that was intentionally done in We Happy Few, that all of the NPCs were essentially the same.
Yes, it was.
Because of the pills.
Yes, absolutely. That's the effects of the pill. It makes everybody a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah. That game's brilliant. Budget. No, that game's brilliant. Play We Happy Few. If you're a Bioshock fan, play We Happy Few.
It's really big on the whole like conforming thing too. Like they try to make everyone the same model kind of citizen. So everyone's supposed to kind of be the same to some degree on purpose. It's the actual conditioning part of the plot.
Yeah. Sound effects. Like I said, I'm leaning good. I like the drill. I like all the new stuff, the abilities to, even the enemies' cries and everything as they're coming at you. I liked it.
Did a good job of telling you about the game state as well. Yep. Let you know when something's aggroed. Let you know when something's still hasn't seen you.
Yeah, Pseudo. Any arguments to that?
No, I love the drill effect.
Yeah.
And it's a strong part of it. I mean, some of the like, weapon sounds can be a bit off, but I don't think it's like an actual wrongness of off. It's the style that they have for how things sound, and it didn't really.
The most egregious sound effect that I have ever had to deal with, and this was modded by the community immediately, was that they actually set up the engine wrong for repeated gunshots and single gunshots in the first Crysis game.
Ooh.
So it just played the first bit of the repeated fire loop for a single shot, which is not how that's supposed to sound, and it felt super fucking jarring. It was immediately modded by the community to just play a single shot sound rather than the first bit of the loop.
I can't remember. This reminds me of something else. Yeah. There was a game that didn't properly account for concurrent audio or concurrent sounds playing. So when the same weapons would fire from multiple enemies at once, it would just get.
It just sounded inside your head.
It just gets amplified and just gets louder and louder, and then would just distort. and I can't remember what game it was, but it was bad. You'd notice that one person's firing, and then two will fire, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, that doesn't sound like there's two firing, or it just doubles in amplitude. And you're like, oh dear God, what is happening? And it gets jarring, or if they play slightly off, and if it's an auto fire, it clips. I can't remember what game it was, but it was hilarious.
Was that a Bethesda game?
I don't think so. It was guns. It was guns. It was definitely an older game, and it was an older game on PC. It would have been probably before or around Crysis era. I'll have to look this up, but it was hilarious. It's just, it would happen sometimes, because sometimes they don't account for it, or it wouldn't happen all the time, but like it is supposed to get louder if you have two guns firing at the same time. It does add that effect, but it's not supposed to be actually adding both of those audios at the same time, because it's a huge difference just to amplify it by that much. And it was so noticeable too, because it's like one would be firing, and all of a sudden it's just like, okay, wow, we're loud by two firing, and God help you if there's even more than that, or you fire back with the same weapon.
Yeah, so since we're calling things out for terrible sound effects, we got to call out the running as well in ODST.
Oh my God.
My music broke in that game.
The classic wet meat slaps, right? The wet meat slaps.
Yeah, I had no music for some reason. It just broke. It wouldn't play. I'm not sure if I don't know. It turns out that they have been having issues with the download client, so I wasn't the only one who had their games just uninstall. I guess like it would update, and I don't know. It just happened to a few people. But I guess that game just didn't download the proper soundtracks because I just didn't have soundtracks for most of the game, which was
Rip.
weird.
Yeah.
And then so most of the time when we were running, if we weren't talking, I just heard very loud footsteps.
Slap, 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 slap.
Like, yes, it is raining out apparently.
AI in Bioshock 2.
Bad.
I was leading okay.
I don't know if that's entirely fair, but like my memories of Bioshock 2 are the enemies trying to A-star their way around a crate and like just going in circles.
Yeah, I definitely didn't experience that. That's pretty bad. I was gonna say it's like to me they were predictable, but at least they were interactable, and I was able to play the whole game and not really, cheese it extremely or anything. It's not like, it's not Cyberpunk where you just get up on a crate and shoot them in the head until they die.
Gotta go on some stairs. What is stair pathing?
Yeah, run upstairs.
I remember like their AI was very much like, I'm gonna run directly to you, and no sense of self-preservation for a lot of the points. But it also wasn't from like I didn't have too much of it where like their pathing would get stuck. Sometimes on edges they would stop and calculate and then go, which I've noticed a few times, but that's not too uncommon for games of that era. But it definitely wasn't like great AI. It was definitely like the same behavior just applied to everything.
Yeah, nothing ever seemed different. It was just enemies that moved on the screen and shot back with reasonable accuracy. Even the difficulty scaling wasn't better enemies. It was just more healthy enemies and more of them.
More skin, more sponge. Forgot about Cyberpunk's AI. That was fun. Frustrating. That was probably the thing that disappointed me like the most.
My favorite Cyberpunk AI is the take cover, no go get him, no take cover, no go get him, no take cover, no go get him.
Yeah, it's just, it was strange. I didn't have high expectations just from like I hadn't seen what they've like the track record from like Witcher was okay, and I wasn't sure how well they'd translate to like a shooter AI, but like
turns out not great.
But it was just kind of these things that I'm like, okay, these are problems that were solved a long time ago. This is like, hey, I'm making a shooter in Unreal Engine and I bought the AI pathing plugin and I put it in without much modification, and now they don't know how to behave around boxes. I was like, it was so hard for me not just to be like, how can I cheese this fight? How I'm like, just for fun, I'm like, I probably shouldn't because I'm ruining my own experience, but at the same time, it's just hilarious to have this boss that's supposed to be super strong just standing under me against the wall, not knowing what's going on, and me just shooting him in the face like, I guess you don't have an AI implant.
Yeah, no, my favorite on that was the one where it just kept rolling over the box for you, so you just kept walking side to side on the box while shooting it as it rolls.
Yeah, it was just hilarious. I didn't even have to like, I just paced around a box, and that thing like one-shot me at first too, because I was way under leveled. It's just, I'm gonna hang out. As soon as it went over the box, I'm like, oh, it did it again. Oh, it did it again. I'm like, oh, you do not have a weighted behavior. You were just gonna keep doing this, aren't you? And then like 10 minutes of this, I'm like, oh, you do not respond to what's going on. You are just, this is an if else, and that is it. No other thing going on here. If other side of box, jump over box. And we're just gonna keep doing this.
Yes, that's the bad. That's the bad. And yes, Cyberpunk got a bad in our AI category. Absolutely.
It got a lot of bads.
It did get a lot of bads. Good in writing, though.
Small tangent. Did you see the roadmap they published
for completing their game?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it turns out it's like, you probably should have just delayed it to same time 2021.
Yeah,
it seems
like we said.
Yeah, game will be ready then.
Maybe I'll replay it then with my new hardware.
Yeah, they're releasing 3 DLC, which I'm looking forward to, and I mean it seems like they're at least committing to making it good, and the game does have quite a bit of potential. Especially if they can add, new areas or clean some stuff up. There are a lot of just really basic design flaws that are pretty critical to the game that probably can't change, but at least it's, oh, we're still working and didn't just quickly push it out and dump it to get that holiday
Money.
cash.
Yeah.
And then just be like, you guys bought it, whatever.
Yeah, that's not a good thing though. But let's not harp on that. Accessibility in Bioshock 2. I think it was okay.
Trying to find a screenshot of the options menu.
I remember there being issues with the mini games. I don't know if that was just Bioshock 1. I don't know if they had configurable things for colorblind mode, but I do remember
what was the mini game in 2?
Or not just the mini games, but the ones where you have to. It's like the slider back and forth, and you need to just stop it on the green and don't stop it on the red.
Yeah.
That one is impossible for some people, or it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I can't.
Good call. Yeah, I remember that thing. And there are no real colorblind options. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. No, Pipe Dream was the first one, Val. But Pipe Dream was the first one. I was so disappointed.
We were super mad when there was no more Pipe Dream. But on the note of accessibility, their sound menu actually kicks ass.
The sound menu is pretty damn good.
Lots of
but the lack
control
of
customization, subtitles, art subtitles. You can turn on and off the quest arrows. The big thing is honestly the lack of colorblind, because they rely so much on color for so much of the UI.
There. The sound menu is pretty damn good, but the lack of colorblind options with a color hacking game that uses the 2 worst colors you can use makes this an auto bad. The only way it could be worse is if it gave you seizures. Cyberpunk.
I was reading a post about it, someone talking about it, and what they had to do was get a red lens, and they use it like monocle style to be able to play those mini games, and that's pretty bad. Especially when you can do non-color indicators, have a texture or have lines, have something that's that distinguishes it rather than just resulting to those primary colors.
Yeah. I'm in between okay and bad on the mechanics.
What is making you go for a bad?
The guns felt like ass. I didn't really like any of them. Everything else is just meat and potato. There's nothing to say about it, really.
My recollection of the guns is it felt like other shooters of the time, e.g. like UT 2004.
Yeah, I remember the guns were okay.
They were okay?
At least from my experience. That was just kind of how they felt if you weren't playing like a military shooter. You were kind of just that we have a center reticle and you hold this button and bullets kind of just go in that general direction and hope for the best, which does not feel great, especially with like the standards we have today. But some of the other stuff they had too, like I did enjoy some of the melee stuff you can do in that.
That's fair.
And just some of the boss mechanics were at least kind of nice.
They weren't boss mechanics?
Not really, but just like the attacks and stuff like that. I mean, at least there was something. Like it wasn't just. I guess not really, because you just walked up and drilled. At least I walked up and drilled most things. But
yeah, I just shot things in the head until they stopped moving. Bosses were no different than anything else. They just took a couple extra shots.
Kind of what I was thinking of. I remember there's certain things I would charge you, but I could just be.
Bioshock 1 with Big Daddies?
No, because I thought there was some in 2 that had a similar, but maybe I am just thinking about 1.
Also Big Daddies?
Yeah.
They had the Big Sisters in 2, and they moved more kind of crazy like. I liked them. That's why we gave it a good in animation. So those things were pretty cool. But they weren't really a boss, and they didn't have any special mechanic. They were just harder to shoot because they moved funny.
Yeah. Based on what I remember, based on what I remember from when I played it,
story shooter with a simple ability loadout system.
Based on what I remember, like, fine is how I would describe the mechanics of the game. There was nothing like glaringly wrong with it, but it wasn't interesting or particularly good.
Yeah. It didn't make me want to play another shooter game. That's for sure. The guns just felt crap. This is Bioshock 2, not the remastered. Because the remastered would have gotten a bad in bugs, because there's some game-breaking stuff in it. It suffered from being like a bonus add-on rather than being a good multiplayer game. A lot of multiplayer suffers from that. I don't know. They're so bad, apparently I was told not to play that version and just play the original one. When I'm given that warning straight out from the beginning, I'm like, okay, gotcha. Taking marks off of that game before I play it.
I'm looking at the Bioshock 2 not remastered PC Gaming Wiki entry. There's a lot of shit in here.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's lots of bugs. But in a casual playthrough, there's no game-breaking stuff. Do you see anything about hard locking, soft locking, save deletion?
Not lots of game crashes. Some game crashes. There is some save corruption. Lots of things just not displaying or audio not working, crashing on startup. Mouse acceleration not actually disabling when you disable it. Audio breaking. Little sister voice acting just never working.
Yeah, that could definitely remove the experience. There are a good number of bugs that can interfere with your enjoyment of the game. Breaking audio, animations, etc. that are the highlight of the experience.
Dead Space 2 had multiplayer?
There was a lot of games back then that just had multiplayer modes that just definitely didn't need them. One of the ones that stands out to me the most was like the Naughty Dog's Uncharted series. They started putting multiplayer in, and it was like,
that has multiplayer?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was that era where like Call of Duty was like, we have a single player campaign that's really good, but like everyone bought it for multiplayer. And it was hard to convince publishers to be like, I just want to make a single player game, because everyone was kind of having that debate of, are single player games dead? Is the money
they continue to not be dead?
Yeah, and it's like, no, it turns out if you make a good game, people will still play it. A lot of times there's a huge market of people who are playing games that, don't like multiplayer. But it was definitely that era of just everything for some reason needed a multiplayer, and a lot of the time they would pull in another team either internally, or sometimes they'd even outsource a team to do a multiplayer mode, and it just felt like completely different from the game. And every multiplayer mode felt the same for like every game. It was always like a 5v5 or like a 10v10 or something like that, of a small team, some capture objective, or just some death match, and that was it. And it's like, really didn't need to add this, but I guess you need to hit that checkbox of multiplayer.
Medal of Honor 2010 had multiplayer made in a different engine. Interesting. Bad Company 2 is Headshot Simulator.
Yeah, what you do is you get the biggest rifle you can find, you load it up with the Magnum bullets, because those always have consistent bullet drop, and you get the biggest map you can find, and you sit at one end of it, and then from there, you headshot people on the other end of the map.
Okay.
That was how I played that game. That was the only way I played that game.
RNG in Bioshock 2. I gave it an okay. Every container you open is randomized. Loot off of enemies is randomized. it's fine. There's enough of it that it should be fine.
Bullet spread. But I think that was also just more of a mechanic.
No, were they actually using RNG on the bullets? I guess they were, weren't they?
Maybe, probably not. It's probably some spread. I don't know if they'd go through the distance of doing a spread pattern, but it might have just been like a circle, and then, chances of just where the positioning is could have been determined by RNG, or could have just been, I have no idea.
I think it was a pretty consistent off-center spray pattern, if I remember right, because I remember...
No, it was RNG.
Was it? Because I started learning, like, if I go a little down into the left of their head with this weapon, I started getting a lot more headshots.
Oh, that's just center being in the wrong spot.
Yeah, I can't remember if this game even had first shot center.
No, it did not have first shot center. That's why I had to figure out where center was and like adjust and everything. But once I started learning how to fire wrong, it started working much better. Which is kind of bad. It's teaching you to play the game wrong. Control, I think, was also okay.
Yeah, things felt a bit heavy to me, but I'm also playing a heavy boy, so it kind of, wasn't as jarring, but it also just, doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
Control
is acceptable. Really... It was never frustrating, but it is far from crisp. Feels a bit heavy, though playing a Big Daddy should probably feel a bit heavy. Yes.
Less offensive than if you're playing like a fast-paced kind of shooter and then you feel like you're heavy, you're slow. At least it's a bit on point, at least, but it could still have that effect communicated without having it not feel super great.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Frustrating.
I know every game should just be Doom Eternal, right?
Every game should be specifically the Slayer rooms from Doom Eternal.
You get less loot and ammo on harder difficulties, and enemies are a lot spongier.
Like a lot spongier.
Spongy.
Random.
That's one of the worst things for a game in my mind. I hate spongy.
Random idea, but like a Doom Slayer gate. Like to capitalize on the Battle Royale hype, Slayer gate type of game where one person just plays as the Doom guy and then 9 other people just play as Doom spawning and trying to kill him.
That would work for like an hour.
Yeah. It would work until someone finds this stupid cheese strat, and then all of a sudden you just have everyone camping the same corner. But be interesting. Oh yeah, Doom Eternal has multiplayer that I never played.
Yep.
And it's got a weird game mode. It's like 2v1.
Demons. You can be demons and stuff in the multiplayer. Yeah, it's another strange tack. Although not really tacked on, because Doom is the first multiplayer shooter, so.
Doesn't make it good, though.
No, it doesn't make it good, but it's not just tacked on. Doom did start shooter multiplayer. Let's not forget that. The first Doom engine was the first shooter engine capable of doing multiplayer on different computers. That's kind of amazing that they've been innovating this long to that level, because they do things every time. I don't like shooters, but I love them.
I think Val has a very good idea. Have it work so that you spawn as an imp, but if you kill the other demons, you get to promote yourself into a bigger demon.
Oh God, just assemble Ultron demon version.
Yeah,
Demon
except
Voltron.
that you have to kill all the other demons, and then you just spawn in as like I don't know,
Icon of Sin.
Icon of Sin or something. Well, no, not Icon of Sin, because that would be fucking stupid. But like a cyber demon, or the fucking, what's the summoner called?
Wasn't it called a summoner?
No, it has another name. I forget. Anyway.
Yeah. Stop making multiplayer for single player games. unless you take the time to do it properly. Those damn single players. Are we at okay or bad on gameplay for Bioshock 2?
By the numbers, it's okay, because there's twice as many okays as bads.
Okay. Kill 98 other demons, you become the final boss of Doom 3 Resurrection. Didn't play it. Won't play it.